Yo, Sheikh Yasser is in unmute. Can you hear me? Sheikh, are you there? If you can hear me, please message here. First person to respond gets a recognition. Just want to make sure. Perfect. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everyone. I'm confirming that you can hear me, you can see me. Hello and assalamu alaikum to all of our viewers. I hope you are well and enjoying the start of your summer. When we first started our webinars, businesses and households were all on lockdown. You know, there was minimal movement in the streets, and I'm happy to finally see some activity happening around us. Hello, Sheikh, I see you. It's good to be here, healthy and positive, alhamdulillah, and I hope the same goes for you all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarab Jawi. I am a mental health therapist for Access Cal Services. Access Cal Services is a nonprofit agency located in Anaheim, Southern California. We offer over 100 services, one of which is mental health counseling. So if you are interested in our services, please feel free to contact us via phone or email. We'd be happy to schedule a session. Sheikh, we're delighted that you are here to join us. This episode is definitely warranted, given what's been happening in recent news. Any person with a conscience who saw the footage of the Floyd incident definitely ought to have had an emotional reaction. People are upset, people are angry. We're seeing demonstrations and political shifts take place. And we're devoting this webinar to address the unfairness in our society. We want to validate those who are feeling subjugated to inequality because of either their ethnicity or their race. We know there are several factors that play into this bigotry. And while I share the slides that we came up with, please feel free to chime in on your thoughts, inshallah.
Well, Sarah, it's good to be with you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody out there. And like you said, this is a timely webinar that we really ought to be addressing these issues and not shying away from them, because they do impact us, and we live in this society where these things are taking place. So find it really imperative that these are issues that we ought to be looking into. You know, just an interesting finding, and it's not just the Floyd incident. Now we have had several afterwards. Sadly, the last one was in Atlanta a few days back with Rayshard Brooks. And what happened is, I've been reading about race relations in America, in North America. And I came and just happened to be that this last, I think it was Monday, the 12th of June. I don't know if you guys know about this or not, but the 12th of June was celebrated as Loving Day because in the US it is Interracial Marriage Day. And here is really the interesting part in all of this. You know, when we speak about these topics, we think that this is ancient history. This is like, you know, slavery. This is like 400 years ago. And that is not the case. It was still illegal in 16 different states in the US that people of color could not get married. I mean, just think about that. Like, really, just think about that. You could not get married in the States. So it was only on June 12th. Now check this out, 1967. 1967. I wasn't born in 1967, but I know that some of our viewers out there were actually well and alive in 1967. So we're not talking about ancient history. We're not talking about, you know what, hundreds of years ago. No, man, this is in 1967. It was actually illegal for people to get married. And this couple, I think it was Richard and Mildred Loving, they're living in Mississippi, and they decided that they wanted to get married. I think it was 1958, 1957, 1958. Well, it was illegal for them to get married in Mississippi. So what they did is that, in Virginia, I'm sorry. So they drove to Washington, D.C., they got married in Washington, D.C., and they came back to live in Virginia. Well, it was still illegal to get married in Virginia. and somebody ratted them out. Police came in the middle of the night. They took both of them while Mildred was pregnant, that, you know what, you guys could not get married. So they went to the judge, and the judge saw them, and the judge said, you have two options: either spend a year in jail or leave Virginia and never come back again. Well, they decided to leave. But then 9 years later, they decided to come back. They were caught, went to the Supreme Court, and it was in June 12th, 1967, that it was okay for people of color to actually marry white people. And here is the name of the law back then was the racial integrity. Like, part of what was happening is that you had to keep the racial integrity, and therefore whites could not marry non-whites. It was illegal. And you look into this and saying, again, the point here is that we are not talking about ancient history. We are talking about these laws that have been there, where people have actually suffered from them are still alive in our world today. So the more you read, unfortunately, literally the angrier you become, because of all the things that were taking place, and just all these literally like laws that were literally made to keep one group of people constantly down. So I think that what we are seeing, and by the way, if you listen to demonstrations, you find that people demonstrated police brutality and discrimination back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, well into the 2000s, and it's 2020, and we're still, these are the issues that are going through our minds. So I think that it really is imperative, and I think that it is very timely that we talk about this. And I think also Middle Eastern communities, Muslim communities, we have had a taste of that discrimination, especially after 9/11. Actually, after 9/11, it became more obvious and more explicit. But what happens is that I think that what we went through is an inconveniency compared to what the African American community has gone through and is going through nowadays. And I think that police brutality is just part of the symptom of a larger sin, of the larger issue that is taking place. And I believe that, so the focus is really not on police brutality, even though it is the one that is being most visible nowadays. And I really want us to look into the bigger picture. This is another favorite of mine, this chant, the idea of no justice, no peace. And I wholeheartedly believe in this chant. It's one of my favorite chants. No justice, no peace. And usually two things come to mind. When we say no peace, like when you hear peace, for example, Sarah, what comes to mind when you hear the word peace? What comes to mind? You got to unmute yourself for us to hear you.
Yes, that would make sense. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. I said calmness. Calmness is the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to peace.
Okay. So and by the way, for all of our viewers out there, please share like one word that comes to mind when you hear the word peace. What comes to mind? And most people, when they hear the word peace, I think that what comes to mind to them is the absence of outer conflicts. Now, this is one aspect of peace. The absence of outer conflicts, to them, that is really peace. Okay? Or when they think of the lack of peace, they think of chaos. So to them, it is just the idea of absence of outer conflicts. It means that we have peace. And I think that would really be a mistake on our part. So like when we are thinking peace, what are we thinking? So would you want to have absence of outer conflicts, but a lot of poverty? Absence of outer conflicts, but a lot of ignorance? Absence of outer conflicts, but a lot of diseases, for example? And most people say, come on, of course not. So when we think of peace, we have got to think really big beyond the absence of outer conflicts. You know, my kind of peace is not about the absence of outer conflicts and a lot of poverty and a lot of starvation. No one is killing anybody, but the people are still dying because of poverty or because of the lack of clean water or anything like that. So I think that is really, really important, that expand on our understanding and the kind of peace that we are desiring. I believe that's really important in order for this slogan to make sense. The other component of it is this idea, of course, even if we say the absence of outer conflicts, then this statement makes a lot of sense, and that is no justice, no peace. And now the idea here is that, well, what comes to mind when we think of justice? Like, what do people think when you think of justice? What does that mean? Like, when you think justice, what comes to mind?
Equal rights, fair
Okay.
opportunity, equal opportunity for everybody.
Okay. And again, that would be part of what
Right.
justice is.
Right.
But then again, I would say, like, we've got to expand our understanding of what that looks like. So people would say that justice is actually the ethics of sharing. No good is good if it's only good for you. The goodest of goods, the best of goods are shared goods. What good is your health if the people around you are not healthy? It further enhances your own health that the people around you be healthy. Your health only, and those around you are not healthy, that is not good enough. So that's why we say the best of goods, the goodest of goods are shared goods. And we must learn that. Or others would say it really is about the extending to others every right that we ask for ourselves. That is justice. When we believe that other people are also worthy of the same rights that we claim or that we want for ourselves, that is justice. But I really like the first one, that justice is the ethics of sharing. Then the question comes in and says, what do we share? I mean, if it's about sharing, then what is it that we are sharing? And I believe that there are four components that we must absolutely share. Number one, we must share human value. And what I mean by that is to view that every single human being is equally a holder of human dignity and integrity, no matter who they are, no matter what they believe or don't believe, no matter just by merely being a human being, they are immediately holders of human dignity and integrity. We must share that our lives are equally valid. And unfortunately, I tell you that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. We may believe it in theory, but it is not something that is practiced. And that is crucial. As we think of justice and we think of the ethics of sharing, that is the very first thing that we have to share. That to truly believe that every single human being is equally a holder of human dignity and integrity. And then the other point that I really, really believe is also important with regard to what do we share? We must also share wealth. If you believe, and I don't mean by wealth that we all have to have the same amount of money in everybody's account, no. But if you believe that I am a holder of human dignity and integrity, my life must be a reflection of that belief that we all have granted to each other a life that is befitting to what it means to be a holder of human dignity and integrity. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Where do you see this? You see this in the healthcare system. You see this in who is granted, business opportunities. You see this in who's making money. You see this. The other day I came across this, that the three richest people in the world have more money than the 48 poorest countries in the world combined.
Oh my goodness.
Like the three richest people in the world have more money than the 48 poorest countries in the world combined. That is crazy. We're not saying that people should not be rich, but we're saying is that, look, if you truly believe that I am a holder of human dignity and integrity, then My life, what we have, must be reflective of the fact that people are living a life that is befitting to a holder of human dignity and integrity. Third thing that is also very important. So the human dignity and integrity. Third thing is power, man. Sharing power. Okay. And that is, if you really believe that I'm a holder of human dignity and integrity and I have that life, I must have a say in my destiny. I must have a say in who rules me. I must have a say in what is going on around me. And again, you see that that is not really the case. It is a small minority that unfortunately holds, you know, holds these big decisions for a lot of people out there. And then finally, just as we're reflecting upon this idea of no justice, no peace, the last point is this notion of we must also share knowledge. Okay, I've always, the idea of knowledge has always been it must always be for the benefit of humanity. Knowledge is never for the sake of knowledge. The idea of what we know, we share with one another. Speaking, of the African American community, do you know that it was actually illegal to teach slaves how to read and write? It was actually illegal. You went to jail if you taught people how to read and write. You must keep them as ignorant as possible. You must keep them as uninformed as possible. Because the more ignorant people are, the easier it becomes to manipulate them and the easier it becomes to take advantage of them. If you have not read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, and Sarah is looking very worried because she just doesn't know what to do. She just pressed the wrong button right now, and I believe Hannah is now the host. So in any case, okay. So
I
now
can
what?
hear you now. Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt, but the Zoom literally just crashed for a second. That's why I was going to call you and say, can you actually still see me or the other participants?
No, we can still see you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so just going back to the Frederick Douglass autobiography. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. It's one of the most beautiful autobiographies. Okay, so Frederick Douglass is this slave, and he taught himself how to read and write. And it's a beautiful story because it was illegal. And what he did is that he would see these little white kids going to school in the morning, and he would come up to them and he goes, "I bet you cannot spell your name." And these kids would get all offended. Of course, I can spell my name, and they would start spelling the name. My name is Jefferson, and then Jeff, and he would be paying attention, and he would do the same thing as they're coming back. You can't even write your address or the name of the school that you go to. And he picked up and he started learning. And then when he's able to read and write, he comes back and he said, "A man with knowledge is unfit to be a slave." And that is very profound. The more people know, the more enlightened they become, the better decisions they make for themselves. You know, and that's what we want to see. So we want to see peace that is not just the absence of outer conflicts. We want to see justice that is the ethics of sharing, where people are willing to extend to others every right that they ask for themselves. We want to share human value, equally believing that we are all holders of human dignity and integrity, even with the people that we disagree with. Not only for the people who are like us, also for people who are not like us. Not only for the people who like us, but also for the people who dislike us. Every human being, by virtue of being a human being, they are immediately holders of human dignity and integrity, sharing wealth, sharing power, and then, of course, sharing knowledge. People would say we also have got to share environment. The idea of only certain type of people can live in this place and other people can live in that way. Say, no, we got to share the environment as well. And then finally, people say we also have got to share responsibility. I can't just be constantly asking for these rights of mine without also seeing that I have something um, to contribute to this. Okay, so to me, when I look back historically, what has happened, what is going on, I say that there was a problem with the idea of the ethics of sharing. And out of that, we have all these issues that have been coming up in the past few days that we have seen. Okay.
Thank you, Sheikh. I'm actually, while you were speaking, I was thinking about your note on for people who like you and people who don't like you.
Yeah.
And that kind of held, a spark in my mind because, people are going to have their biases for whatever reason. But I remember you and I talking about implicit versus explicit racism.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that maybe you can share a little bit with our viewers on the difference so that they can understand the microaggressions that take place and how they're played from, different people's treatment.
Yeah. So let's go through the definition so that then we make it down to the implicit versus the explicit racism. So these are the words that are being thrown around. There is discrimination, there is prejudice, and what was the third one that we have there?
Racism.
And then there is racism. Okay, so racism, discrimination, and prejudice, and these are like really really nice. Okay? So remember, racism is the belief, discrimination is the action, and prejudice is the affect, the way that you feel, emotion. You can go back to the first one. Okay, so when we speak about racism, it is the belief. Okay, we've got like three different elements here. The belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. And here is the thing, that the belief, and to me, this really does not make sense. And that is the idea of people taking pride in something that they had absolutely nothing to do with. Like, look, man, proud of being black, proud of being white, brown, yellow, whatever the case is. What you're saying is that by merely being this, you are inherently that. And by them being that, they are inherently inferior. That is literally the epitome of stupidity. When people hold these types of beliefs, that simply because of the race that you belong to or the color of your skin, you are immediately categorized. And that's why I say the problem is never in being black or white. Black and white is pigmentation. That is just pure biology. The reason why you are black or you are white. It is the value that we assign to what it means to be black and what it means to be white. That is where the problem is. Black and white on their own, they're just colors. The value that we assign to them or the devaluing that we do, that is where the problem is. And we live in a world where the closer you are to being white or having a lighter skin, generally speaking, the feelings are of superiority and the feelings are of looking down upon those who are not. And I am aware, in religious communities, people would speak, "Oh, come on, we're all the creation of God. We are all God's children," depending on the religion that we believe in. So people can have these beliefs. But what we're looking at is practically what is being done. And that's why I say, look, man, if what you believe in does not impact how you behave, what you believe in is not important. Okay? And if you can just mute yourself.
Yes, I'm trying to do that.
Okay?
Everybody can just please mute themselves.
So again, this idea of if what you believe in does not impact how you behave, then what you believe in is not important. You can say all you want about how we are all equal in the sight of God and how we are all God's children, again, depending on the religious belief that you come from. But by the end of the day, if that does not impact how you behave, then what you believe in is not important. I don't care how eloquent you put it. I don't care how, the kind of words that you use with it. If it does not impact how you behave, what you believe in is not important. So that's racism. So that is the belief. Now, you go on to the second step, and that is acting upon that belief. And that is the act of making distinctions between human beings based on the group, class, or other categories, which are perceived to or belong to. Okay, so now it's one thing for you to have that sense of superiority, and now not only that, but now you actually act it out. And I think that's when we will get to the part of um, um, the implicit and the explicit racism. Okay, so now the idea of by virtue of being black, and I will just be talking about my experience here. And I am a person that, I really don't pay attention to these things, but sometimes they are just so unbelievably right in your face that you cannot help, but to notice what is going on. I think I shared that with you before. I was in college, and I was having issues with I just feeling very tired most of the time. So I asked a friend from the masjid, a doctor, and I said, look, man, this is how I'm feeling. And it just happened to be he was an endocrinologist. So he immediately said, well, have you checked your thyroids before? I said, man, I didn't even know I had thyroids. And he said, no, he said, what you need to do is go get me a blood test and we'll see what happens. So back then, I'm in college, we had the health care in the school. And I went to the nurse at the school and I just came up to the window. Good morning. How can I help you? I said, I'd like to get a blood test, please. And she looked at me, wallahi, I kid you not. She looked at me, she said, oh, but we don't do HIV or AIDS testing here. And I said, oh my God. Who said anything about AIDS? Who said anything about HIV? Well, the idea here is that, she saw a young black man, good looking, and then she immediately assumed that, oh my God, there must be, this is what's going on.
Right.
I buy coffee on my way to the masjid. Allah, I kid you not. Go to the store there, and the lady tells me that, you know what, I'm just going to brew you some fresh coffee. I said, great, man. I get out of the coffee shop. Next to the coffee shop, there was the cash payment, cash advance loans. And I was always intrigued by them. I just want to see, like, how do they do business? So I go in there. The manager was busy. I look into the paper and I come out, get my coffee and go back. I'm at the masjid and I'm upstairs in the masjid and I see a police car pulling in. Then, it was President's Day, I remember so vividly. And then a second police car pulls in and say, oh, did somebody call the police? There was no one at the masjid. And then a third police car pulls in and saying, what in the world is going on? 3 police officers, they walk out. I go downstairs and I show up. And the very first question that they ask me is, do you have a gun? And I said, no, I don't have a gun. I said, this is my cell phone. I said, okay, fine. Put your hands out. Yeah, what's going on? He said, well, did he just go to the cash place or the payday loan place? I said, yeah, he's getting some coffee. And he said, well, somebody called us from there saying that somebody suspicious walked in. And then I said, oh, man, I can go and talk to them. And then the police officer looked at me and he said, it wasn't actually the manager that called. So it turned out that somebody called and she was following me all the way to the masjid while she was on the phone with the police. Then he cannot help but say, like, man, what made me suspicious? What was it about my presence that made me suspicious? Okay. Or just the idea of just walking into the mall and just noticing that somebody is just following you. They're not really buying anything. They're just keeping their eye on you simply because you fit a certain profile. So we're looking into this idea of racism. You hold these beliefs, and then there is the discrimination. You act upon these beliefs, and then there is the prejudice. And I think it was the slide before this one. And prejudice are the affects. If you can go back to the previous slide there, okay. And that is an affective feeling towards a person. The other way. One more.
Prejudice. Sorry. Okay.
These feelings towards a person based on their perceived group membership. These feelings that you have to, all people are like that. I remember being pulled over by a police officer before, and he looked at me and he really suspected that there was a warrant for my arrest. And he looked at me and goes, I know you people. I said, who are we? Which people are you talking about? And I remember the tendency here is that we speak about the police because the police is the most visible. That's where you see it. And sometimes, and I really, really hope that our audience out there don't get me wrong, but it really, really frustrates me when I come to people and say, man, I got pulled over today for no good reason. And then immediate question I get is, did you get a ticket? No, I got pulled over for no reason. Yeah, but did you get a ticket? You're not listening. I got pulled over for no reason. But did you get a ticket? No, I didn't get a ticket. Okay, khalas. And when people just say, okay, khalas, oh, I lose it. I really, really just, at that point, I just go crazy. What do you mean, okay, khalas? Well, you didn't get a ticket. I told you I got pulled over for no good reason.
Right.
Yeah, but you didn't get a ticket. No, 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 no. See, and that is the problem. And that is the problem. It's like, coming to the community and saying, and by the way, we just found out that the FBI is being listening to your phone calls. Well, man, they can listen all they want, man. They won't find anything useful. No, but somebody is invading your privacy. They should not be listening without your consent or without you knowing. Yeah, but they won't find anything. And that just really, really drives me crazy. Like when people are unaware of this racism, discrimination, prejudice, they downplay it. Well, guess what happens? When you allow these things, when you downplay these things, when you undermine them, when you belittle them, guess what happens next? Then the internment camps come, then the isolation comes, then you being put in prison comes. And that is why I say you've got to stop these things from the very beginning. I'm not sure if this is making sense. But if I ever come and complain to you and say, look, I got pulled over for no good reason, please do not ask me. Later on, after 10 years, you can ask me whether I got a ticket or not. But do not ask me immediately, did you get a ticket or not? Are you following? Am I making sense to you?
Absolutely. They're oblivious to the point as to why you got pulled over to begin with. And so when people start to tune out the real reason behind the reason why people are getting pulled over, more advantage is taken advantage of them, more advantage taken of them. And it's hard for them to understand the root of the reason and how to backtrack and try to, find that justice or calmness and peace that we were talking about earlier, because it's deeply ingrained and it's more of a systemic problem.
Unfortunately. And like I said, at that point, wallahi, I really, really lose it at that point when people, like you said, miss the point. Because they're all, just to them, it's like, look, by the end of the day, did you get the ticket or did you not get the ticket? Okay. So just, and that is part, of what it is that we're trying to do here. And that is just educate ourselves. The better informed we become, what's the word? The better informed we become, what's the word I'm looking for?
Being able to make wiser decisions.
Yes, and we will not be taken advantage of. And that is why, when you look into this idea of informed citizens are usually are the idea of informed citizens are those who do not belittle these things. They want to make sure that they are addressed at their very core and not waiting for them to become, people are going to jail, and you don't wait for that to happen. You address it as immediately and as soon as you see it. And that is what we want to be able to realize. And when people speak, you're speaking about, institutional racism. Man, this idea, when you look into the African American community, wallahi, I think, and I know that like Dr. Cornel West said one time, he said that there is a thug in me. There is really a thug in me. I know that there is a thug in me that I constantly have to tame and control, because there is just so much out there that would make you angry. Most of our viewers, I believe, are from California instead of California. Did you know that between 1981 and 1994, the state of California built 21 prisons and one university? They built 21 prisons and one university. What does that tell you about priorities? Do you know that the US has the highest number of prisoners anywhere in the world? We have more prisoners than they do in China. We have more prisoners than they do in India. And remember, China and India are both triple of our population. Okay, how is it that we have more prisoners than them? That usually leaves us with one of two options. We're more criminal than they are, or we criminalize behavior that is not necessarily criminal anywhere else. So people speak about this idea of systematic, racism. I give you another example that sometimes people do not become aware of these things. Okay, systematic racism is this form of racism that is expressed in the practice of social and political institutions. It can lead to discrimination in the criminal justice system, in employment, in healthcare, in political power, in education, amongst other issues. Again, looking into just really wanting to become better informed. We had a case. Sometimes people are put in prison and then you're asked to set bail, and that is you set bail so that you don't spend time in prison and then you come back again. Well, it turned out that a good number of people cannot really pay their bail. But if they stay in prison, they can potentially lose their jobs. If they stay in prison, they will be behind in their payments. They will be behind in their bills. So what they tell you is, well, if you are unable to, pay bail, what we can do is that why don't you just take a plea bargain where you plead guilty and we will put you in probation for so long, and you can go back and do your thing. And people look into this and say, fine, I will do that. Well, it turns out that other people don't have to do this because you can mortgage your house and not freeze a penny of your money. You can use your credit card. You can pay cash and then later on get your money back. And it turned out that for people who take the plea bargain, will certainly for sure they're going to break their probation, because 3 years is just too long of a time. And it turned out that the people, once they leave jail on bail, they actually have a better chance in fighting back and not having to do any time and not having to take any plea bargains. So what you see here is that a system that benefits the few. It's a system that puts others in a disadvantageous position. And by no means, and again, that's something that, with all due respect, my immigrant brothers and sisters, sometimes, we don't get this. And I don't know what your experience was, Sarah, or your parents' experiences, but do you know that immigrants, as soon as they come to the US, especially immigrants, not refugees, immigrants, they immediately will be doing better than 90% of the entire African community in the US. Like, you will be immediately, by just the day you land in this country, you're immediately doing better than 90% of the African American community in this country. We immediately live in good neighborhoods. We immediately live in white middle class neighborhoods. We're here to improve our lives because that's just the nature of immigrants. These are people who are doing well in their countries. They came here to better their lives, and they think that, what, it is our hard work that got us there. Good for you. Really good for you, because some of these people, yes, they did work hard, and we don't want you to apologize for your hard work, but you were granted an opportunity that other people were not granted. So remember what we said about this idea of what justice is. It is not only our desire, it is also our want. It is this idea of, I want to extend to others every right that I ask for myself. Because no good is good if it's only good for you. The goodest of goods, the best of goods are shared goods. And that is what we are hoping. That is what we are hoping to accomplish here. And then, of course, there is this idea of, again, belonging to the community that we belong to, a Middle Eastern community. I think that many times we are guilty of what I call group selfishness. And that is, we want to speak about the FBI picking on the Muslims only. Okay? Yeah, there was a point where, yeah, the FBI was speaking on Middle Easterns, Muslims, and they would just really target Muslims and Middle Eastern people. And people would just say, no, man, that is just discrimination. You're just discriminating against us. I say, that is true. But remember, we protect our rights better when we protect everybody else's rights. So as long as we say, look, this is not my problem, somebody else's problem, I don't need to worry about it. One day it will be my problem, and everybody else is going to be saying, it's not my problem, I'm not going to worry about this. And I believe that is going to be a catastrophe. And I think that we have been, as a group, I think that we have been selfish, that we did not pay attention to the pain of those who are around us. And I think that is really, really a catastrophe.
I appreciate that, Sheikh, and I totally agree. I don't think that it's an individual problem. It's a societal problem. And there's not going to be a change until we collectively agree that the issue is there. I do have a video, if that's okay, if I can interrupt and just share it with everybody. It's a 2-minute video just showing prime example of what racism looks like in our society. I just wish that I can actually figure it out.
This evening, if you can, inshallah.
Do you see it? Is it there?
Yeah, we see it.
You're going to be so proud of me. Okay.
And make sure that you unmute the.
Thank you. That was going to be exactly where I put my cursor next. Thank you. Okay.
Let's do it.
Tune in.
See, we can't hear it now. We can't hear it.
We can't hear it?
No, I can't hear it. I'm not sure if anybody else can hear it. Can you all hear it? Can people hear it? I can't hear it. Yeah, you can't hear it.
Wow. Okay. Well, to be honest, it's just sound. It's just music. There's no talking. Just watch. You have the screen for, okay?
Okay.
But the music would make a difference. Yes, you can see the video, right?
Yeah, we can see the video, and like you said, we are getting the point.
Okay, the video. I don't know why nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, stop it.
All right.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that you guys couldn't hear it, but it was just music. It wasn't actually, there wasn't a voice on top of it, of a narrator at least. And sorry, some people are chatting that they can't see it, and some can. Can you hear me now, Sheikh? Can you hear me?
We can, and we are proud of you. It was actually a good choice, and we appreciate it because it really does, bring that element into it. And here the point remains that what is being suggested here, that these things are not necessarily just accidental. these things, they seem to be fitting a pattern, which is really unhealthy. And at some point, I think that we also need to be addressing uh, racism and discrimination in our own communities. Because sometimes, remember that the Middle East is one place where you come from is really important. And what I'm suggesting here is, I'm not suggesting that we all become colorblind. That is not what we are proposing. We don't want to be colorblind, but we want to be color kind. That my color is used as a form of identification. I don't mind for people to say, Yasser, no, yeah, come on, Yasser, man, the African guy. I don't mind that because you use my Africanness as a way to define me. I really do not mind that at all, and I'm never offended when people say, that the black imam, what's his name? Yeah, Yasser, yeah. I don't mind that because that is just part of me. Okay, what I am hoping for is that we use it only as means of identification. So we can never be colorblind, but we can definitely be color kind. And like I said earlier, the whole notion of, they have studies as to why people hate some people. And I find this, really to be amazing. That quote says that, I don't know these people because I hate them, and I will never know them because I hate them. Okay, I hate them because I know them, and I will never know them because I hate them. So it is crazy. ABCs of human sociology. Get to know people. Why is that important? Because if people don't know you, people will not trust you. And if people don't trust you, people will not accept you. And if people don't know you, don't trust you, don't accept you, they will never love you. Like, this is literally ABCs of human interaction, human sociology. When we know, we trust. When we trust, we accept. When we know, trust, and accept, then we can potentially love each other. People say, oh, can we just get along? Can we just love each other? No, no, no. If you really want to do that, you've got to start at the very beginning, and that you've got to know people. You cannot just claim that you love without really knowing. That will be very unacceptable. Like I said, but that is a time that we need to. This is an issue that has to be addressed within our community.
Sure.
What
Thank you, Sheikh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And again, the video was just highlighting some of the ways that injustice take place without there being a reason, just like you mentioned, like in the example of a resume, a simple person reviewing resumes and seeing a name that may not necessarily be a white name. Already, your chances of getting an interview have decreased just because. Right, so I'm really bummed that nobody got a chance to see it, but I will share the link in the chat box so people can watch it on their own time. But just to kind of walk away with some golden pieces of advice for our viewers on how can we approach these injustices or make a change in our society. I know you're saying to start small and start within the homes of your own, your own circles and networks, and being able to trust and communicate and be open to meeting people. Just because they're outside of your norm doesn't mean that you're not necessarily open to meeting them. But what can we tell our viewers just to kind of walk away with some inspiring lessons